All right, welcome everybody. We still have a few more joining us, so we'll give a couple minutes to let everybody get joined in.
Just let me know.
Yeah, Bob, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today for the Zoom chat with Superintendent Maxwell. We're going to start with a short PowerPoint, go through some quick updates, and then we'll turn it over to you guys to ask any questions and have Bob answer those for you. If you would like to ask a question of Dr. Maxwell, please put your question into the chat. That will come directly to me, and I will go ahead and moderate those questions. We have an hour of time today, so we'll get through as many as we can. So Bob will get you started here on the PowerPoint.
Thank you, Courtney. All right, well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate you joining this evening. It's been quite a day, first day for our staff with professional development, so we're excited to get started with the upcoming school year. So I do have several slides that I will go through first, and I do want to start out by thanking all of our reopening task force committee members. We had 103 folks that contributed to the reopening plan task force as far as serving on committees, and that included health professionals, parents, students, and staff. So thank you very much. If you are interested in looking at the particulars of our reopening plan, you can see the link that's right here on the slide, and that is on our website. That'll take you to the complete plan that we have. Thank you. So one of the things I do want to reiterate with our audience today, if you are not aware, the immunization requirements have changed. Effective August 1st, students must have required immunizations in order to enroll and attend school. So it's really, that's quite a different change from in the past. So if you do have new students or students that needed updated immunizations, please get those in as soon as possible. If you have any questions, feel free to contact Michelle Hyatt, our lead nurse. Really important this year. In order for students to start school, we need to have those immunizations requirements met. Next, please. So again, as part of our reopening plan, one of our top priorities, obviously, is the safety of our students and staff. We've been working with the Washington Department of Health, the Whitman County Department of Health, all summer in creating health and safety protocols to meet the requirements. So again, cloth face coverings are required for all student, staff, or essential visitors. There are a very few limited exceptions regarding a medical condition. Health screenings, there's an attestation that will be required to be completed by all staff and students when we're in a hybrid, and especially if you're coming to school. And that's simply a link to an app that you would fill that out. So that's very important to know. Again, following the requirements from the Washington State Department of Health, student, staff, parents really need to stay home if they have symptoms of COVID-19 or have been in close contact with someone with COVID-19 in the past 14 days. Social distancing will be practiced as well as physical distancing. We sometimes use that word interchangeably. Again, as much as possible to maintain that proper distance between staff and students, students and students, staff and staff. Next, please. Again, hygiene practices will be not only taught at all grade levels, but reinforced. Again, hand washing is very, very important, especially before or after meals, snacks, outside, using the restroom, after blowing or blowing your nose or sneezing, before leaving to go home. Again, most of our classrooms have sinks and soap, and hand washing is preferred over hand sanitizer, but we will also have hand sanitizing stations throughout the building and in close proximity to any classrooms that do not have a sink. Cleaning and disinfecting protocols have been worked out over the summer, and this includes cleaning, sanitizing, disinfecting our buildings. Really important that we are cleaning and making sure that we have a safe and healthy environment for our students and staff. Again, if someone did develop symptoms at school or became ill, we would make sure that we had them checked out at the health room. If they do have symptoms, we would separate them for any contact with other folks and contact home immediately to make sure that they can get home and get checked out, make sure they're safe. Ventilation, including opening up windows, fans, looking at our HVAC systems to increase airflow, to maximize that air entering the building. So we are taking a look at that. We're also taking a look at various filters that may be more appropriate than what we have, but currently our filters meet all the requirements thus far provided by the state as far as regulations. This is new. This just came out this week from the Office Superintendent of Public Instruction. Attendance will be different this year with distance learning than it was in the spring. Students will need to attend school each day. The definition of a distance learning absent is when a student is not participating in a planned instructional activity on a scheduled distance learning day. So what does participation look like or attendance? That means they're logging in daily. They're having a daily interaction with their teachers. That could be via email, a phone call, video chat, or evidence of participation in a task or assignment. So again, I cannot highlight enough the importance of attendance. It will be a requirement each day, and we want to make sure that our students and families are aware of that. Next, Courtney. Here's a technology update. So we will have Chromebooks available for students that need a Chromebook. Distribution will be at Pullman High School, Saturday, August 22nd, 8:30 to 4:30, Sunday, August 23rd, 8:30 to 4:30, and Monday, August 24th. I can't see the time on there, but 8:30 to 4:30. Again, it'll be very similar to what we did last spring. Drive up, provide the name of the student, and wait. We'll get the Chromebook and receipt for you. You do not have to check out a Chromebook if you do not need a Chromebook. However, they are available to all students K-12. In addition, we do have remote email support, and the email address is there. This will be posted on our website, and that's Monday through Friday. The times are listed. Also, there will be a remote phone support schedule Monday through Friday available. In addition, if you do not have an internet connection, please contact your student's school, and we will work with our instructional technology department to see if we can help establish an internet connection. Again, I think I just covered this, but I'll go over it again. We've been getting a lot of questions. Does my child have to use the district Chromebook even if we already have an internet connected computer at home? No, you do not, but we do have it available. My students in middle school or high school student, when we move to a hybrid model, I understand my student will need a Chromebook and will carry it to and from home as needed. Can I check out a Chromebook when that time comes? Absolutely, yes. Food service update. So daily meal pickup will be, breakfast and lunch will be available at the student's assigned school. Meals will be recorded into Skyward under the student's name. We will have limited delivery stops in areas that are identified as high need for free and reduced eligible students. This will be a little bit different than last spring, where we were given permission to serve any student that needed a breakfast or a lunch. Currently, that option is not available, but it is available for free or reduced students. We are also exploring an option of pre-ordering breakfast and lunches for those students who would like to purchase a breakfast or a lunch. Stay tuned for more information. We're working out the logistics on that, and we will have that out to you before school starts. Some other quick updates. Walk Kids screening for kindergarten students. This only applies to kindergarten students. That will take place virtually or distance learning, August 26th, 27th, and 28th. Each elementary school will contact families with additional information. So WA Kids is a screening tool that is required by the state of Washington, and that is for kindergarten students only. Textbook and material distribution. Each school will be sending out information to families regarding dates and times to pick up any textbooks and school materials that will be required by particular grade level and or class. Athletics and activities. Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, WIAA. They've posted tentative sports seasons for both high school and middle school. Middle school is posted today, and that actually follows the high school schedule to a degree. Currently, in order for sports to occur, in-person instruction must be happening. In addition, I do want to make a clarification regarding activities and clubs. Those have not been canceled due to funding. We are currently exploring which activities and clubs might be available remotely. We will have more information that will be coming regarding clubs and activities. So please be patient. We will have that to you as school begins. Distance Learning 2.0. This is a change from last spring when it was an emergency and we had to go from in-person learning literally to distance learning over a weekend. That was an emergency situation. Over the summer, our reopening task force and 9 subcommittees have been working on a distance learning plan. This was created with staff, parents, students, contributing as well as community members. This will be different than the spring, and these are the key points that I do want to make sure that everyone is aware of. There will be daily synchronous live learning experiences. There will be daily asynchronous recorded learning experiences. Specific schedules for students and families to follow that also allow for adjustments based on family need. We will have specialists and electives. We will have consistent use of 2 learning platforms, Seesaw grades K2 and Google Classrooms at grades 3 through 12. We'll have set times for intervention support as well as set times for office hours and drop-in help. Again, we'll have 1 student, 1 device. That was very similar to spring. Daily attendance. Teachers have been attending training this summer and are also currently engaged in a 4-day training series to provide distance learning online. We'll also be offering some tutorials online for students and parents so they have a better understanding of either Seesaw or Google Classroom. More information will be coming on that as well. For elementary, I want to share some important information. Again, classroom placement postcards were mailed today for grades 1st through 5th. You should see those in your mailboxes soon. Kindergarten classroom placement postcards and welcome folders will be mailed tomorrow, August 20th. So important note that you know when your classroom placement postcards are coming. Elementary, again, I mentioned Seesaw will be the learning management system for grades K2. Google Classroom will be the learning management system for 3-5. Specialists will share one Seesaw classroom. There will be a week at a glance and office hours. And again, as mentioned, training tutorials for families on the use of Seesaw and Google Classrooms will be provided. Next. Middle school, just a note that the virtual Spartan Startup went live on Monday, August 17th. For more information, there is a link there for you to access. For middle school, Google Classroom will be the learning management system, grades 6-8. Very similar in many ways. There'll be a week at a glance and office hours. There will be a drop date for classroom materials Sunday night by 7 p.m. It would be Monday if it's a holiday. All work and materials will be in a classwork tab. Work and materials are organized by the week. All links and documents should be attached to each assignment. And again, we'll have training tutorials for families on the use of Google Classroom. High school, the virtual Greyhound Gear Up went live on Monday as well, August 17th. There is a link there as well. Google Classroom will be the learning management system for grades 9-12. Week at a glance, office hours, drop date for classroom materials will be Sunday night as well, Monday if it's a holiday. Very similar to the middle school, all work, materials, classwork tab, organized by the week. Links to documents will be attached to assignments, and again, training tutorials for families on the use of Google Classrooms. We'll note that many of these pieces of information that I've shared with you also were resolved from feedback from our community members and our staff to provide a more consistent and structured distance learning experience. That said, we know that we may need to adjust some things as we move along, but I appreciate and want to, again, thank our staff, students, community members for their input, feedback, and work on designing this distance learning plan, as well as the hybrid plan. With that, Courtney, I'll turn it back to you. We have some time to take some questions.
All right, and just a reminder, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and then we'll work through them as we go. So Bob, as parents of a K-5 student, regarding the Zoom Google Meetup class periods, is the absence policy 2 days or 2 meetings?
That's a great question on the policy. I will check on that and get back to put that on the FAQ as well. I need to check with teaching and learning on that attendance question. I'm sorry, I don't know the direct answer to that, but Courtney, if you can make a note, I will seek out that answer and make sure we get that posted on the FAQ.
Okay, because I think there are some other questions that follow up with that, such as, is there any flexibility regarding the mandatory Zoom Google Chat class check-ins? Maybe what's considered an excused absence? So I think just wanting more information on schedule flexibility.
Yeah, I can answer some of the excused absences though. So let me take a shot at that. Again, they have expanded excused absences during COVID and distance learning. That would be an ill family member, a lack of access to necessary instruction tools, a parent's work schedule, or student's obligation to their family. So they have provided some additional flexibility for approved student absence that can be excused during COVID-19. And again, any truancy work regarding absences would not start until October 4th. So again, there's greater flexibility of what is an excused absence. And we will, again, be happy to, I believe it's in our PowerPoint. We can post that online if not.
All right. In a typical school year, kids would be grouped in their class based upon skill, need, strengths, etc. Will that be the case in the online environment for K-5?
Yes, the online environment for K-5 is very similar to our traditional way that we've grouped students. In hybrid, if going on to a hybrid model, if students or parents choose not to attend and go to a distance learning model, we are looking at what that structure may look like. It may be a little bit different, but we will be working on clarification and specifics for when we get to that point in time.
Will lessons be original content or an assembly of web resources? Will assignments include any analog content or digital only?
So we'll have a combination of, again, synchronous, asynchronous lessons and learning experiences. So it will be a combination.
And there's a couple more questions in here, Bob, about the PHS clubs. Maybe you could clarify one more time that PHS clubs have not been canceled. It seems like possibly the clubs were considered canceled except for ASB and yearbook.
So we started the year with ASB and yearbook and not the other clubs and activities, because we're still working on what the clubs and activities would look like virtually. So they were not canceled. If anything, they were just postponed till we have clearer guidance and directions for our club advisors, as well as our students and families. So we'll be working on that. So, but they are not canceled. They are not canceled due to funding at all. So just want to be clear about clubs, activities. Also, some of those may be aligned with WIA, so there are also some other rules that we have to take a look at. So we'll be working on providing some additional clarification.
This question is for drop-in office hours. For students who have special learning disabilities or might take longer to complete assigned tasks, how will those office hours be set up? Will every teacher offer them, or will there be designated teacher for that service? And how many hours a week will that be offered?
That's a great question. So each teacher will have scheduled office hours, and those office hours will be noted in the schedule that's sent to the student. So I am envisioning that their general education teacher will have office hours posted, as well as a special education teacher as well.
Are there any special requirements for the cloth face coverings? Airlines have different requirements, will we?
Not at this time. We do follow the Department of Health recommendations. So right now it's basically any face cloth coverings are accepted at this point in time. That may change regarding neck gaiters, but we haven't seen that guidance come out yet from the health department. I would say avoid neck gaiters if possible, but any other type of cloth face covering is acceptable at this point.
How long before we reassess when K-5 students can return to in-person learning?
That's probably the number one question that is on everyone's mind. We are in the process of developing what we call return stages to reopening in person, or the hybrid. We are going to be working with the Whitman County Department of Health, as well as the State Department of Health, in taking a look at what would be the metrics we would use in order to feel comfortable and that it is safe for our students and staff to return to in-person learning. Right now, there is a State Department health decision-making tree that is based on number of cases per 100,000 over a 2-week period. That is broken up into 3 different phases. We are looking at something that would be more of a 6 stages and more of a slower start. And what I mean by slower start is that we were looking at the possibility of when we feel it is safe and given the green light to bring students back in a hybrid model, that we may start slowly by bringing 2 grade levels in at a time, get them acclimated, and that could be over a 1-week, 2-week period. We haven't decided, and then bring in a couple more grade levels. Again, the key to this, I think, is going to be making sure that the COVID cases, positive cases, have stabilized at a low rate or declined and remain at a low rate before we jump in. One of the things that we've talked a lot about as a staff and as a community is trying to avoid jumping back and forth between distance learning and hybrid. So we're going to probably wait and err on the side of caution to make sure that we just don't go 2 weeks and jump into something and all of a sudden have a spike and need to go back. So we're going to take our time. We're going to develop that in consultation with the Department of Health, and I hope to have that out and completed within the next couple of weeks.
What concrete steps are in place this semester to address any learning loss that may have occurred due to the pivot and the usual summer slide?
Great question. A couple of things that we're taking a look at right now. Teachers will be looking at the essential standards that were covered last spring. We definitely had to narrow those down given the quick change that we had to do and less face-to-face instructional time. So teachers will be looking at the essential standards that were covered or not covered last spring, be looking at the essential standards that we want to cover this year. So that's one piece that our staff are working on. The other with the essential standards is looking at baseline assessments to gauge where students' learning is. And so, for example, with kindergartners, we have the WA kids. We'll also be taking a look at, we currently use MAPS. So we will do a baseline with students to find out where they are, and then we'll be building their educational programming from that point moving forward.
All right. For those families that are working families, is the online going to be on a schedule, live stream, or will it be pre-recorded so we can work with our schedules? If so, how will that look? And also, are there any social programs in effect to help engage students with other kids their age?
Great question. So there will be a structured schedule for students. The teacher will have live teaching or live learning experience, be providing that, as well as recorded learning experiences. So students will have the ability both to be there in virtually live as well as look at recorded lessons. We know there's going to be times where, especially with families at home having different schedules, so we're trying to build in some flexibility with the schedules, but you will receive a structured schedule from the individual teachers. And there's a second part to that question, social opportunities.
Social programs, yep.
Thank you. So again, with social programs, I know that the first 2 weeks of school, we're really going to focus on social emotional well-being of our students as well as our staff. So we will be planning some activities, and I'm sure very similar. One of the things that really were a positive with our spring experience were the number of opportunities where teachers had virtual live experiences where students in each class could get together and do some fun activities as well as some learning activities at the same time, again, to make that connection. So I know we're working on plans, and stay tuned for as that rolls out in the first 2 weeks of school, but we definitely want to make sure we have some opportunities for our students in each class to socialize.
Has the district looked into using all buildings to separate the grades? Basically putting fifth graders in high school, fourth graders in middle school, third graders in one school, just to create more space and distance.
We did explore those opportunities over the summer, looking at spacing it out, giving the 6-foot minimum distance requirements. We found that just was not possible given our population, especially our middle school and high school population. If you looked at our plan at the hybrid, it's an A-B schedule where we only bring half the students in at a time. At the elementary, we're in pretty good shape, and we probably could bring all of our students back still with the spacing, or utilizing some additional spaces that are bigger than a typical classroom, such as maybe a music stage. So we do have some plans in place at the elementary, and we have plans in place at the secondary, but due to the numbers and the physical distancing requirements, it'd be really, really difficult unless we didn't have middle school or high schoolers attend in person at all.
What is the plan for students who opted for the online instruction now that everyone is online? If and when we return to a hybrid model, what does that mean for those who do not plan to attend in person? Will they remain in their same class with their same students, just doing everything from a distance, or what does that look like?
That's a great question. So right now we are working on specifics for that. And part of that is taking a look at staffing and enrollment numbers in that particular situation. For example, if a staff member was not able to attend in person, would that be the same class? Or would we form a new class on a distance learning? So we're still working on that. I don't have a specific answer right now, but there are several different models that we're looking at for when we do go to a hybrid, and those students that still want to attend distance learning, we will be working on a specific model for that to occur, and we'll be communicating that out as we finalize those plans.
For families that are unable to pick up their Chromebooks on the allotted days, can they call the school and pick them up on a different day?
I would have them call IT, and we will make arrangements to figure out how to get that Chromebook to them.
What was the data that led our district to change their plan to have in-person K-5 learning?
Could you repeat that question again, Courtney, please?
What was the data that led our district to change their plan to have in-person K-5 learning?
Oh, to change. Thank you. So the reason why that was based on Department of Health metrics and the recommendation from the Whitman County Department of Health that we not have in-person K-5 at this particular time due to the high rate of COVID cases in our community.
Do families need anything else other than an internet connection? Do they need, for example, Microsoft Office Suite or any other program other than an internet connection?
Really, an internet connection and a camera would be the two things they shouldn't need any specialized software, but if that becomes an issue, again, please let us know and we will work to help resolve that issue.
For musical instrument pickup, when can they plan to do that?
That's a great question. I know our Teaching and Learning Instructional Programs Department is working on that, and we will get the instruction and directions for that out to our families soon. So Courtney, if you could make a note of that, I will make sure I pass that along. I know they're working on it. I just have not seen that distribution plan yet.
When can families expect to get a general daily schedule?
They should, after this week, they should receive their daily schedule. I believe that it will be Sunday or Monday.
Regarding the required attendance, we have some employees who cannot work from home and will not be available to help moderate their young children from home. What are their options for help in that circumstance?
Is this for employees?
It looks like for working families that are not able to be home and
Oh,
facilitate that drop-in time for help.
so again, with that particular situation, we are taking a look at trying to figure out ways to address and help with that. I know if they contact their particular school and give us a little bit more information, we will see what might be available as far as assistance or resources.
How do families sign up for the option to be online all year? Will they just be transferred to an online option if we go to a face-to-face delivery?
If we go to face-to-face and families are choosing to go to an online only option, we will set up basically a link to register. We are hoping to try to figure out a way to do that with the current teacher if all possible. If not, we'll create a new class.
And then just to reiterate, all clubs and groups have not been canceled or suspended. We're just continuing to navigate which ones we'll be able to offer virtually.
That is correct. Clubs and activities and sports have not been canceled. Again, they've either been postponed or a modified schedule. We are looking at specific directions and structures on how some of those clubs and activities would be able to do virtually. Some of those may only be able to do when we're in hybrid, but we are looking at all those, and we'll have more information coming out hopefully soon.
The first day of school will stay the same. August 26th will be the first day of school for grades 1st through 5th. Kindergarten has a slow start, so they'll begin the following Monday.
Correct.
Has the schedule for specialists at I guess any level, has that been incorporated into the daily schedule?
I know that in the sample schedules in the plan, they have the specialist outline. Specialist schedules will be coming, and they should get that before school starts, hopefully, or right after school starts.
Are students required to attend the synchronous and are they required to participate in both the synchronous and asynchronous experiences, or if they attend one or the other, does that count?
Students should be attending both because they may be different or different content subject areas. So as much as a typical school day would be in the past, we're trying to replicate that as much as possible in a distance learning model.
When will the district decide which clubs can and can't operate?
We're going to be working on that with a group, probably end of this week or next week.
What will the schedule be for grades K-5? We will have a more detailed plan incorporated into our reopening plan with those schedules outlined by times. So once those schedules are updated in the plan, we'll get that sent out to families so you can look at grade levels, start and stop times, and specialists, and all of that. So all of those schedules will be in our plan. So we'll get those updated and have that reposted as soon as possible.
Yeah, and the teachers are working on their schedules. So again, they'll be getting that week at a glance. So they will know what's coming up that week. So that will be dropped and posted, I believe, Sunday by 7 p.m.
A lot of families who will not go back to hybrid as early as the district might. When will the model for online only during a hybrid return to school be decided and communicated to parents?
We'll be working on that over the next few weeks. And so stay tuned. I don't have a specific date where we'll have the specifics ready, but we will be working on that once school starts and we have time to sit down with our staff, look at enrollment numbers and look at staff availability.
Can you clarify the information about use of Pullman teachers versus the use of Apex?
So again, Apex is one of the online courses that we have used in the past. It's one of the tools in our toolbox as far as the courses available online. That's one option, but we are looking at a more comprehensive online offering rather than just Apex at this point.
During the daily synchronous learning, do students need to have their video feed turned on?
Yes, they do. We want to make sure they're participating.
Can you share some details on tests for distance learning students?
Our assessment group has been working on that particular piece, as well as right now the state is still requiring us to do SBAC online. So we'll be coming out with additional information on how testing will take place online. We'll be doing maps as well. So we'll have the instructions sent out for each time we go to assess and how that will work.
How will PE be handled in particular at the high school level?
Professional development.
Physical education, PE.
Physical education. So they'll be working on their schedule for the week and their lessons. So again, with health and fitness, as you know, some of those are physical activities, as well as some of those are lecture and learning modalities that are not classroom learning experience. So they will get a schedule sent out and a list of activities and tasks.
Do we expect to have in-person class this semester?
That is a big unknown at this time. If I had a crystal ball and could figure it out, I'd be happy to give a date, but at this point, I have no idea when that might be a possibility.
So the next few questions, Bob, are regarding special education. What is the plan for those students that distance learning doesn't really work for? And will they be coming into school to work with the special ed teacher or parapros, if that's an option?
Yeah, the special services department is working with families, and they'll be notifying those particular families that first we'll start with students that are completely unable to access learning online, distance-wise, and they'll be bringing them in for some in-person instruction on a set schedule.
Pullman School District, just as a reminder, will be starting the school year in a distance learning only option for all grade levels. So if anybody missed that announcement, there will not be a hybrid option to start the school year. Bob, breakfast and lunch pickup delivery, will there be a break in instruction to allow people to travel to the school socially spaced to pick up meals and have a lunch break?
There will be a lunch break built into the schedule. We will take a look at the times for pickup for breakfast and lunch, as well as the delivery. So we will try to coordinate the best that we can to make sure that doesn't impact learning time.
The next question is regarding access to the training materials for Seesaw and Google Classroom. Will that information be on the postcard? On the postcard only outlines who the classroom teacher will be for grades K-5. As far as the training materials for Seesaw and Google Classroom, Bob, how can they access that?
So we're going to be working with our instructional programs, and I will have them, I know they're working on putting together those tutorial links for families. So Courtney, if you can make a note, I will double check and see when they plan on sending that out.
Okay. Distance learning is a huge burden for parents of young children. For parents who need to work, are you working to help provide resources to help parents with tutors or childminders, etc.?
So we are working with our local child providers to identify resources and places that might be helpful for parents that might be struggling to find childcare. The district will not be offering any child care services at this particular point due to resources and availability of staff.
What is intervention support and what does it cover?
So intervention support would be more like the typical small group support that they would receive in a quote unquote typical face-to-face learning environment. So again, groups of students will be identified and, for example, Core Plus or special education services or ELL, English language learners. Or it might be even a teacher might determine that some additional assistance or intervention may be needed for a group of students and may build that into the schedule.
As schedules continue to revolve and update, how can parents check for a schedule update? Should they check with their school, or how can they expect to receive the information? For example, the PHS schedule does not seem to have a lunch break built in, which they assume there would be. How do they check for that?
Yeah, and that I did have a conversation again with the high school, and they'll be building in a lunch break for those students as well. So we'll get that. That should come out, I believe, in the week at a glance, but I will double check with instructional programs.
How many times per day will a K-5 student have a time requirement to be online?
That will be at least twice a day with the synchronous and asynchronous.
Are all due dates for middle and high school classes going to be the same? It's too hard to have multiple kids in different schools with different due dates.
That's one of the things that we're working on. I know the drop dates for assignments, as far as posting assignments, will be the same. As far as turning those in, that's probably a little more difficult to try to coordinate that. But again, we're trying to structure that so it's a little bit more clear and manageable for both the students and families and staff.
What is the vision for children with working parents? How are elementary kids expected to make the live meetings when parents are working?
Again, we're hoping that our students will be available to access that learning when parents are away, or if the child is in childcare. We are working with childcare facilities as far as trying to help them be able to access those learning experiences from that current location.
What will this supply list look like this year if we're still in distance learning? If a student has exposure and is home for 14 days, can they still attend virtually?
Yeah, if the student has been exposed, and they will have we'll be working on a way that they can definitely attend virtually.
And the school supply list, will it look the same?
School supply list will remain the same. Obviously, not starting out in a hybrid, they don't need those supplies right away, but teachers will be notifying students if they need particular supplies. We also will have some supplies available thanks to Stuff to Bus. So if you contact your school, if your student's in need of a notebook or writing utensils or something similar, or if we're going to require certain educational resource, we'll see if we can provide that.
When can families expect to get the first week at a glance? This coming Monday, or just so they can prepare for the start of school on Wednesday? And when will they be posted each week?
Again, that should be posted, I believe. I'm correct in saying this will be posted on Sunday at 7 p.m. Unless it's a holiday, it will be Monday.
What is the procedure to request excused absences for distance learning environment?
So that process, the schools are working on the particular directions for that, and that will be coming home.
And just to clarify again, daily and weekly schedules will be in our plan and also will be communicated to you by your teachers, principals, and also in our plan. So just keep an eye out for that. They should be coming through shortly. How long are the online classes?
The online classes, I believe, are a minimum of 30 minutes.
How are electives that might be higher risk as related to COVID, i.e. band and choir, being handled, both during our first 4 weeks and if we return to in-person?
So band and choir will be obviously be virtual during distance learning. During hybrid, we are working on, they'll be spaced out. They will be, we're looking at some specialized face masks possibly, and they will be either outside if weather permitting or in a large space such as the commons, so we can spread out that physical distancing and make sure that it is safe. They'll also be working probably more on music theory in some cases as well. So again, we're going to have to adapt as best we can to accommodate band and choir in particular.
There's a question about how to turn in immunization records. You can submit those to your students assigned school. Will there be distance learning for the coming term and beyond, or are we working on a term-by-term basis as far as distance learning?
We are working on a distance learning model for the year. So we obviously everybody's distance learning right now, but if we do go to hybrid, we will have an option for distance learning. We are also looking at in the future the possibility of offering a limited distance learning depending on student interest and staff and resource availability.
Can families use tablets like iPads instead of checking out a Chromebook?
As long as they're able to access it, absolutely.
If a family has internet that might not be stable and is always interrupted, will that affect the teaching procedure?
We are hoping not. One of the reasons that we are switching to Google Classroom is that they kind of compact the bandwidth, and that way it should help with the internet connectivity. Again, that's a real hit and miss depending on where you may be or what your internet provider is. But we are working with internet providers statewide to try to shore up internet connectivity and stability.
Are students expected to have microphones and webcams for classroom engagement?
Yes, they should have their microphones and cameras on.
Are the office hours designed for students to get extra help with things as needed, or is there another format for that?
Some of the office hours generally would be to check in. There might be some availability depending on how many students may be contacting during office hours. I think the teachers will make that clear in their week at a glance and additional information to help with that, but there is some intervention time built into the schedule as well.
Will synchronous lessons be recorded in case the student loses internet access?
They should be recorded, yes.
What is the criteria to switch to hybrid school, and how far ahead will it be announced before starting?
So the criteria will be based in consultation with the Whitman County Department of Health. And so when that will happen, we want to make sure that the cases per 100,000 per 2 weeks is well below the 25 number that's established and would need to remain there for a significant amount of time in order for us to move forward with a hybrid. Again, I'm not sure if that would be 4 weeks, 4 months, or a year at this point. A lot's going to depend on how our community responds to COVID and how the cases hopefully will fall and continue to stay at a very low number.
Will K-5 students receive teacher feedback on assignments on a daily or weekly basis? Will there be graded assignments, and will there be any changes on how grading will work?
So grading will revert back to our typical grading model. For the most part, the state has not issued any changes like they did last spring. So assignment feedback, one of the things that we're really going to focus on as a staff, and this was from feedback from our parent surveys, was more meaningful feedback. So we're really going to focus on providing more meaningful feedback on assignments. Whether that is daily or weekly will depend on the individual teacher and content area. But we are working to provide more meaningful feedback on our assignments.
Okay. In lieu of being able to check out library books, will we have access to an online source of books?
We are actually exploring the possibility of checking out library books a few days a week. So we're working on a plan, and as soon as we have that plan developed, we will share that out via each building.
For K2, what are the expectations for Zoom, given that younger children are likely to struggle with using that interface?
Again, we're using Google Classroom Meets and probably not Zoom. We may be using some Zoom in some cases, but it should be much more user-friendly and more secure.
Okay. Let's look at, looks like a lot of these are the questions about distance and hybrid and moving to that, which I think that we've covered. Kind of a time commitment to synchronous and asynchronous instruction and those experiences for kids. When can families expect to receive email addresses and login information for Google Classroom?
I know that they were talking about that today, and so that information should be coming out very, very soon.
If a family with a student travels to a high-case area, will they need to quarantine or not?
Right now, we would check with the Department of Health to give us guidance on that particular scenario.
Of the 6 stages of returning to in-person learning, how long will the parents have the option to keep the students at home for online education?
Repeat that question, Courtney, please.
Of the 6 stages of the phased-in reopening,
Yes.
How long will the parents have the option to keep the students at home for online education?
That will depend on the cases and the stages. If we go to hybrid and a parent opts to go online, we're definitely taking a look at they would have to stay out probably online at least a semester or maybe a year rather than come back if we were in hybrid. We're still working on the details of that.
What is the rate of infections at right now in Whitman County, and what does it need to be at to return?
I don't have that current information, but the Whitman County Department of Health would have that. But again, in order to return, it would have to be below 25 cases every 2 weeks per 100,000.
At the board meeting, you indicated that all teachers are required to teach from their classrooms. What thought has gone into helping teachers who are parents who now have their kids at home as well?
So we are working with our staff on particular cases where there may be a hardship or extenuating circumstance.
What are the plans for the PSAT and ACT or SAT exams?
We are still waiting for information to come from the companies. So last email I received is they stated they would be providing us with some information. They did not give us a deadline when we would receive that information.
Are there any plans to provide more advanced work for K-5 high cap students? Can parents request to have their students have access to curriculum in higher grades?
That would be instructional programs, and they can feel free to contact instructional programs. I know that the subcommittee had discussed a particular structure for high cap. but I would recommend they check with the plan or instructional programs office for specifics.
Will families have access to school libraries?
We will be looking at a checkout system, but right now they will not have in-person access. It would be more of probably a curbside pickup.
Will same classes, for instance, Algebra 1, be teaching the same material at the same pace? So all classes are ending at the same knowledge base, both junior high and high school.
I know that the math teachers work and collaborate together on the content and pacing.
What is the plan for students who take band, orchestra, and choir in both hybrid and distance learning?
So in distance learning, they'll be coming out with, in particular, how they'll be doing that similar probably to spring with some enhancements. With hybrid, we are looking at different locations where they could spread out to make sure that they're physical distancing safely.
How consistent will the experience be for students across the different elementary schools?
Could you repeat that one again, Courtney, please?
How consistent will the experience be for students across the different elementary schools?
The experience should be very similar. All the elementary schools have been planning and working together to standardize the educational learning experiences. So it should be very, very similar.
Can elective classes at the high school level be waived to reduce the class day for students to help with family obligations?
There is the option if there's a family obligation that they could get excused absence.
Will there be conferences this year?
There will be conferences.
If two families are working together to do distance learning, can they request that their students be in the same class so that their curriculum and schedule is aligned?
We will take a look at that. We'll make a note of that, and we'll make sure we take a look at that when we're putting together our program.
What about metal and wood shop? How will that be conducted online?
I know that they are working this week to take a look at the specifics of how that will look. Definitely, I think we learned a lot last spring on those particular classes, so I don't have the particulars, but that should be outlined in the week at a glance.
What about transportation for students getting to and from school?
So transportation, we will be building our transportation routes to address both distance learning and for hybrid. Again, we are really taking a look at how that might look in a particular hybrid situation, especially with secondary students living in town with Pullman Transit. We're going to have to work with them on, in a hybrid situation, how many students would be allowed to ride, or if we need to provide different transportation services, or we may look at certain particular stops and adjustments to routes.
What types of back to school nights will there be virtually? Will there be anything extra for kindergartners to meet their teacher?
They are, school teachers are working on introduction videos, as well as they will be working on virtual open house.
How will assessments be proctored from home?
The assessment group is working on that, so we'll have more information on how they're going to proctor those assessments from home.
Okay. Start date for kindergarten will be next Monday, or sorry, not next Monday. Next Wednesday is the start of school. Kindergarten starts the Monday to follow. So that day is September or August 31st. If teachers are making the schedule per week, could learning times change?
That's a great question. I don't foresee learning time changes, but there may be an adjustment on how long a learning or synchronous or asynchronous time may change a little bit.
Parents, sorry, Bob. Parents need a way to prevent kids from accessing online distractions like non-instructional YouTube videos. Is there a way we can manage that so they can't access those types of videos on PSD Chromebooks?
I know that IT is working on a filtering system, and I will, if you make a note of that, Courtney, I will readdress that with IT to get the specifics out to parents.
Will attendance be counted only if their video stays on the entire time?
Probably not, because if it dropped and they started the particular lesson that they were at least engaged in. So we'll be working through attendance, but I could see if for some reason if their internet went down, they were there in the beginning, they would still count as attended.
Can you confirm that meals will only be available for free and reduced students in the distance learning model?
To start with, but we are also looking at the possibility of having students that typically would buy lunches or would like to buy lunches or breakfast, making that available.
In the event that in-person learning does take place, what will a closure look like if a positive COVID case is confirmed at a Pullman school?
So that will be in consultation with the Whitman County Department of Health, and they are working on specific protocols.
Are course fees still required for classes like SHOP?
We are taking a look at course fees to see if we'll charge for those in a distance learning model, depending if fees go home. For an example, that we may have art fees if we purchase those supplies and send them home where they can work on art. With SHOP, that might be much more difficult, but we are taking a look at that as well.
What about students who need language support or who English is their second language?
So again, we'll be providing that intervention service that will be worked into their schedule.
Is there a plan for transportation if we return to in-person instruction?
If we return to in-person instruction, we are looking at how we'll be transporting students. A lot of that's going to depend on what the physical distancing requirements may be. That might have an impact on our ability to transport students.
Is there a dress code for kiddos, for example, no pajamas? It is something that families have heard with other schools, that there's a dress code on the Zoom meetings or Google Meets.
Yeah, we have not set a dress code, but we would prefer students show up prepared to go to school and not necessarily be in their pajamas, but definitely comfortable clothing.
Will the online schools start around the same time as usual? So for us, that's 8:30, 8:20 to 8:30.
Yes.
Let's see. Yes, you can request to get a Chromebook in the middle of a term. So if you do not check out a Chromebook and you find out as time goes on that you would like to check one out, that will be made available. IT support. Are we working on hiring more IT support so they're not getting inundated with emails? Might be hard to get back to families in a timely manner.
We'll be taking a look at our IT department, and we may need to add a position there. So we're taking a look at that in the future.
If families find that the distance learning model does not work for the family and they decide to homeschool, are they able to re-enroll once the schools open back up? And will we provide any information about how to establish home as homeschooling?
Yeah, they would have the ability to change to homeschooling.
Is Running Start still happening?
Yes, Running Start is still happening. Where
can families find the FAQs on our website?
So that would be under the reopening plan. We just changed to a different website. So we're still working on migrating some of the FAQs, but we'll take a look and make sure that we get those in an easy reachable place. There is a button on there that says reopening. So check there first, but we should have the FAQs up. If we don't on the new website, we'll make sure we get those updated and on.
Bob, can you give a really clear time commitment for school daily for K-5?
K-5 will be the same hours, the expectations for students as they are in a typical school day.
Will students be taught by their assigned teacher or taught by other teachers at their school or in the district, like in the spring?
They'll be taught by their teacher. There will also be specialists as well that will be teaching the other content courses. And they may have support staff teaching as well.
You said teachers have been working together. Does that mean the same materials will be provided to all, therefore able to sub in case of need?
It may not be the exact materials, but they are working together and collaborating on the instructional content.
For specialized classes, for example, multimedia, will there be specialized software required for students, for example, Adobe Suite?
The teacher will make a note of that if there's any special software that is needed.
And the last question, it looks like if there's a positive case in a school, would the entire school be shut down for cleaning or closure, or would only some students, staff, and teachers be required to stay home in quarantine?
It's a great question. So a lot of that is dependent upon particular classroom. If there, for example, if one student tested positive, we could do contact tracing with those that were closest around. That's why we have a required seating chart. That may or may not require the classroom to quarantine or not, but it would not be the whole school. At least that's the direction currently.
And there's a couple more questions, Bob, but we're at almost 6:15. Do you want to answer these last few questions, or do you want to reach out via email?
I'll take 2 more questions.
All right. There would like to be some understanding on how often the district meets to assess when it will be convenient to return to class. On the other hand, once the meeting decides to start classes, how long does it take from when the board meets to the actual in-person teaching?
So again, really hard to give a timeline with that. That's going to be very dependent on consultation with the Whitman County Department of Health. And so I'm not able to give a time period, I'm sorry.
Can families choose to homeschool at any point?
Yeah.
Or is there a deadline? It looked like maybe September 12th was the deadline to file paperwork.
That's for the beginning of the year. I will double check on that though. We'll get it. We'll get that up on the FAQ. Please make a note, Courtney.
Right. So I think we're going to go ahead and close down the chat at this point.
Great questions, everyone. Thank you very much. We will look at trying to update our Q&A as quickly as possible and make note to some of the questions and answers. So appreciate your grace and patience. This is definitely not where we want it to be, but we want to make sure our students and staff are safe, and we'll continue to provide updates as those become available. Thank you.